Hello everybody, we're back again and I've got Oli and Adam with me this week. And off the back of the video we made last week around overeating, we got a lot of very, very positive feedback. And one of the topics that a lot of people were interested in was the social aspect of overeating. So this week, guys, we're going to drill into some of the social scenarios that people struggle with. Now, before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of things, I wanted to ask both of you, is this something that personally you have struggled with? So, overeating when you're around friends and workmates?
Yeah, it's a very easy thing to do. If you go out with your friends somewhere and everyone's eating, it is an easy thing just to order this, that, and eat it all. If you're going to like a party or something where there's like chips, everything's kind of out on the little plates, it's easy to overeat because you don't know how much you're really eating. So yeah, it's definitely something struggle with.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? Because I mean, in the time I've known you, you've been someone who's been pretty disciplined with your eating. But is this something, as someone who's very serious about their training and very serious about their nutrition, is this something that you've struggled with?
Oh, absolutely. More so recently, because I think earlier when I was younger and I played a lot of football, or I did a lot of running, you know, I burnt off a lot of calories before I got to that social stage, so I didn't actually worry about it.
Right.
These days, I don't do as much running, or I don't burn as much as I used to. So I have to be more conscious of it in a social situation. I need to. During a social situation, I don't focus about it too much. It's just that before and after, I do things about it. So it is something I worry about these days more so. Yeah.
I mean, just as you were saying that, I've made a little note here about habits, because this is something we have to be mindful of. Because if some of these harmful habits around social scenes form at a young age, and then we're not exercising as much, it might be something that becomes a problem later on.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially if your routine changes.
Yes. Yes. So let's go through some of the scenarios that people are commonly faced with. And I think the classic one that I see all the time is beer o'clock on a Friday. Right? So people have been working really hard to create a calorie deficit all week. They've been exercising, they've been going to the gym, they've been running. Friday 4 p.m. at work, at most corporate scenes, it's time for a beer. And I've seen people undo the whole week's calorie deficit and get the weekend off to a really poor start just by overdoing the drink and the chips and the snacks. What is a strategy we can use there, Oli?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. There's nothing wrong with having a beer or anything. I'd just try to stick to one. So if you're going to have a drink, just try to stick to that. Try not to have the chips as well. So if you prefer the beer, have the beer. And stick to one, and in between, if you want a second beer, why not have some water in between or something to kind of equal it out. If you prefer the snacks, then why not just have the snacks and take your bottle of water with you and have that instead. That way, you're kind of offsetting it.
But I mean, Adam, in your experience, is this something that makes some of these scenarios that we're going to cover very tricky? Because we are all, as humans, such social creatures. I mean, just about everything we do revolves around food. You know, every happy occasion I can think of, going back to when I was a child, it's something around food, right? And Friday 4 p.m. is just because it's Friday, right? TGIF, right? Is this what makes it more tricky?
It does. I think, some people think about their week as Monday to Friday, and then they start relaxing, and then they just almost forget about all that they need to do during the weekend as well. So maybe change your mindset and avoid Friday as like, I can relax and I can just, ruin everything. So just thinking about the future as well, like maybe have a specific plan of another day where you can just relax a little bit more, or spread what you could have in one afternoon over a few days maybe, or something like that.
And this again is such a good point, because what I've gone through personally is, you have a cheat meal that very quickly turns into a cheat day. Right? You undo the whole week's calorie deficit.
Yeah.
And then you overcompensate, because for the next few days you cut calories even more.
Exactly.
And that just sets off this vicious cycle where you're just going high, low, high, low, high, low.
I think that's what I'm trying to get at. You don't ruin everything in one Friday afternoon.
Right.
So I think you treat yourself a little bit more throughout the week.
Yes. So just because having one beer is okay, you can easily go the other way and completely undo the whole week or the 2 weeks worth of calorie deficit that you've been creating for your goal just by having that one. Right. So in terms of meeting up with friends and having a coffee and some of these other scenarios that people commonly come across, or the one that we've just had today where we've all caught up, watched a game of football, this is another scenario where people can easily lose track of what they're doing.
Yeah.
What are some of the strategies here?
If you're going out with your friends, I think one of the things is if you know the restaurant you're going to, or wherever, kind of look at it in advance, kind of plan what you're going to eat. That way you're kind of more mindful of it. You're not going to go overboard. And try to make sure you have something with some vegetables as well. And think about the drinks as well. Again, maybe go for the water option rather than having too many cocktails or anything.
And coming to you, Adam, like the whole strategy around using things like veggies and water, these are things that, as strategies to avoid overeating, they aren't as sexy as what some other people will say. Do you think that's what it's about? It's about these simple little things? Or do you think there is one big thing that people can do if social eating is a problem for them?
Yeah, it's a good point about the veggies. I mean, in the social situations, you want to relax a little bit more and maybe don't over-stress about what you're eating.
Sure.
So, like Oli said, maybe planning ahead and checking what is available on the menu. That's a good point. But then maybe also like thinking about what you can do before you go to the social situation and what you can do after. Like, I think I do that quite a lot. I know you do. Thinking about that, and then maybe just relaxing a little bit, and not over stressing and making social situations like a very stressful, problem that you can have, and you want to avoid that. So
when you're there, you want to enjoy it with your friends rather than worrying about
exactly. You should just relax a little bit more.
And I mean, you and I were just speaking about this off screen, but what Adam's referring to here is something that I do quite often, because I have a definite protein target each day. I try and get my protein in before I go to these social settings. So it may be a protein shake, it may be some other source of protein. I just try and get all of that in before I go out to the social scene, and that just means I'm not under pressure to go hunting for protein, so I can relax a bit and try different things. And B, protein's just a more satiating food, so I'm less likely to overeat. Now, the final scenario, guys, that I want to touch on here is if this is a really, really big problem for someone. So if this is something they really struggle with, what is the advice? So if this is someone who just can't avoid going out with friends and undoing the whole calorie deficit that they've created, and if these little strategies around protein and water and just having one or just having a little bit aren't working, what are some of the other things that people can look at?
I think one thing is track everything that you eat. It's hard if you're at a party and it's not on, you just take it direct from the plate. So you're going to have to be more mindful about what you're eating if you're tracking it. And if you weigh yourself like every day kind of thing, and then you're tracking what you eat, and then you realize, I'm going up in weight because of this, it may make your mindset change a bit. So you might realise, oh, I'm eating way too much at these things, I'll cut back a little bit. So tracking, I think, is a big thing that can help.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Agree.
I think if it's a big problem, sometimes you can't fix a big problem straight away. And so knowing that you can fix it over time, so maybe taking small steps at each social situation to get into a new habit and developing new habits. So maybe say you're going out and your friends and you're just going to relax and you don't know how much you're going to drink. But maybe go into a certain social situation and say, look, I'm not going to drink past this point.
Right.
And then just limit it there.
Yeah.
And then you get into a habit of I don't need that much.
Yeah.
Or not even drinks, maybe the extra bowl of chips or something. Just say, look, today I'm not going to have it. Yeah. And then maybe just enjoy yourself with everything else.
Yeah.
Develop some habits, and then maybe over time you can, it won't be such a big problem.
Yeah. So guys, I hope the one thing you guys picked up on there was neither Adam nor Oli suggested going completely cold turkey. That is not what we're saying. I think to stand here and say, if this is a big problem for you, go completely cold turkey and avoid those situations. I think in the long term that simply isn't going to work. And what the guys have really pointed out here is two strategies. Ollie's one is around tracking, and that can be really, really useful. I personally find it super useful. Just going and eating whatever I want and just tracking it kind of leads on to what Adam's saying. It just lets you know where you are, right? And I really like what you said, Adam, around setting smaller goals. So, it might be 5 beers, but you're just saying, okay, this week it's going to be the 4 beers and half a bowl of chips.
Exactly.
And the next time around, it can be even less, right? And probably in wrapping this up, guys, the only point that I wanted to touch on is something that's helped me a lot is often social occasions aren't all about just the food. We're there because we're with our friends and we're with our family. And I think sometimes just focusing on things other than the food, so not making it all about beer o'clock on a Friday being all about the chips and the beer, but it's actually about reflecting, sitting with your teammates, and thinking about the past week at work. I think these things are all very, very useful in not making you think about just the food. Any closing thoughts, guys?
No, I think we wrapped everything up with that one.
Don't stress too much, everyone's in a similar situation. You're not unique, so
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for all you guys for watching, liking, and subscribing. The feedback that we've had to this whole overeating series has been overwhelming. What we've realized is that there's quite a few dimensions to this that people are really interested in. One of the dimensions that we'll be covering next week is going to be around emotional eating. I know a lot of the feedback we've had following on from last week has been around people with struggles when it comes to emotional situations in their lives. So that's something that we will be touching on very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.